Show us the one when we're kissing. Show us the sea while we're cool. Come take a trip in my airship, and we'll visit the sun in the moon. Ain't this a nice song? Yes, it is a nice song.
Up ship. Hey everybody, welcome back to Airship 27, the podcast. I'm Captain Ron Fortier.
And I'm Chief Engineer Rob Davis of Airship 27.
Hey Rob, it just boggles my mind how fast time is going, my friend. I mean, it's like we were having butterflies launching this show, this series, and here we are getting ready to do number 3 already.
Yep. Here it comes.
And, we've done this with the last episode we did, but we have to really do it to just say thanks to all the people who are taking the time to listen in and to comment and to write letters and to ask questions and to support us generally. So we're going to follow the same format that we've been doing for the last 2 shows and continue it because it seems to appeal to our audience here.
Ain't broke, so don't fix it.
Hey, there you go. Amen. So the big news for Airship 27 was the book we released today. Why don't you tell our loyal airmen about that?
Me? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it's amazing to me that sometimes we have 3 or 4 books in the pipeline all at once. And it's just a matter of which pieces come in time to make it all work. And the latest one that we just pumped out is, and I don't mean to pumped out in the fact we just kind of threw it out there. We worked hard on this thing. But anyway, the latest one we've got out is Domino Lady, Volume 1. And it's got stories by Greg Hatcher, Tim Brucker, Paul Finley, and Gene Warriors with some beautiful interiors by James Lyle. He just knocked it out of the park with this. And speaking of knocking it out of the park, that cover from Ted Hammond is just to drool for. It really is.
Hey, I can't agree with you anymore. Honestly, this is a book that I am personally excited about because of its history. And people who pick it up, take a second when you do to go to the end of the book, where I posted a little short afterward essay explaining why this particular volume of the books we put out so far had a different kind of hook. Because it was a book that we almost put out several years ago, and because of various snafus and mishaps and whatever, it ended up someplace else. so finally,
we've got a really strange history with Domino Lady that. So yeah, this was kind of an interesting turn of events. Yes,
but anyways, we did it, and the package looks absolutely phenomenal. As the editor, I can tell you the stories are top notch, and I echo what you're saying, Rob. James Lyle's interior illustrations by themselves were the price of admission, and then then Ted Hammond comes along and does that insanely beautiful cover. Obviously I've been posting the press release and that cover all over the internet today, and I'm already getting all kinds of feedback. And I have to laugh because our good friend from Chicago, Chris Bell, the writer, posted and said, "Wow, I'd buy that just for the cover."
Well, come on down. Windy City's coming.
And that's the purpose of the cover anyways. It's to make you want to buy the book.
Yep.
So if you are a listener and you haven't checked out either Rob's page, Facebook page, or my own, or whatever, go to Facebook and please find online. The book is available. What am I talking about? The book's available at Amazon right now in hard copy. And in a couple of days it'll be up for Kindle, Rob?
Yep, as we're recording this, yes. It's up at CreateSpace, and the links are at our catalog website, airship27hangar.com.
Yeah, and it is on Amazon.
And it's on Amazon. Yeah, okay. Well, I've been gone most of the day. I just got back breathlessly here a little bit ago before we started recording.
You started off the day with letting me know it was up at CreateSpace.
Yeah.
And
I put it up at CreateSpace, but at that point, it wasn't up at Amazon yet.
Right, it is now.
Now it is, I'm sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So like I said, the next part of the process is the Kindle version. And again, before the weekend's out, those of you who are on Kindle and want a digital copy, that will be available to you.
Yep, should be. Yep. The PDF, of course, at our website is available now. In fact, I was just looking through my email. Somebody's already ordered one of the PDFs. So
that is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been up there, 12 hours and somebody's already purchased a copy. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, definitely.
All right. Okay, so Domino Lady's out, and as you said, it's always a case of feast or famine. We go through these periods where we have so many books in development, but none of them are ready to come out. And then all of a sudden, like you say, 2 or 3 or a half dozen are all set to go at the same time. And right now you're working on what I'm betting will either be our next release or second in line. Second in line. Depending on an artist named Mr. Blevins.
Yeah, I think he's going to. Well, he's supposedly he's already started on it, from what you were telling me. And knowing Brett, if he gets into it and it falls into place, it's gonna knock everybody's socks off.
Oh, I totally agree. And for all you fans wondering what we're talking about, we are, of course, talking about the professional graphic artist, comic book superstar Brett Blevins, who is currently doing a cover for us. Once that cover comes in, that will be our next title to come out. But at the same time, Rob himself is doing interior illustrations on a really popular series of ours. Why don't you tell them about that, Rob?
Well, it's my favorite character that we do. Well, actually, he and Sherlock Holmes are kind of neck and neck, I'll have to admit. But this is Secret Agent X. And the reason I like doing the interior illustrations for that is that there's a little in-joke or an inside, nudge, in each of the illustrations to let you know which character is Secret Agent X. Because, as everyone knows, he never has his own face on. He's always, he's like the Mission Impossible thing where they put the rubber masks on. He's always disguised as someone else. So the trick was, when doing that series, was figuring out how the heck do we indicate to the reader or the viewer that this character is Secret Agent X. Well, there's a little X on him somewhere. It's a ring, tie tack. It's in his tie. Maybe it might even be the design, the design in his suit. The shape is a bunch of X's or something. But there'll be X's on the character that is Secret Agent X. So that's some of the fun with that. But he's such an interesting character because he can become anyone else.
Right. The tagline to his original pulp magazine was Secret Agent X, Man of 1,000 Faces.
Absolutely.
Right. And as I recall, there was I think his confidant and girlfriend Betty Dale was the only person who'd ever actually seen his real face.
Right.
And he would surprise her because supposedly his disguises were so well put on and applied that there were times when he'd actually come up behind her and she would not know that he was Secret Agent X.
Yeah, and a couple of the stories in this book there that happens to her. I don't know if she's in. I think she's in every one of the stories in this series. She's almost like his Watson in that respect. She's in every story that we've done so far that I know of.
Yeah,
and
I commend you because I've said this in private emails, but I love the way you draw, Betty.
Well, this is my opportunity to do a really beautiful, buxom babe. So
there you go. So
every artist loves drawing those. So this is an opportunity to do that.
Right. Now, in all our anthology books, for those people who are not aware of our titles, and hopefully, through this podcast, you will eventually become a loyal airman and check out some of our wares. Our anthologies usually have 12 illustrations. We have 4 stories, and Rob or other artists assigned to the various books do 3 illustrations per story. So you're at what, 6 illustrations done? Are you halfway done this volume?
Actually, I think I'm at number 8. 8 or 9. I'd have to look here real quick. Like I said, I just got home and I can't remember exactly where I am on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got one laying here. That's a picture of X and that very buxom young lady we were talking about earlier.
Right.
I think that's number 8. So
okay.
I'm almost 2/3 of the way through.
Excellent, excellent. Off the top of my head, because I don't have the roster right here, but I do know this new volume, which is volume number 5 in the works, features another story by Frank Childiner, who's a huge and excellent Secret Agent X writer. He loves the character as much as we do.
He's been in every volume so far, hasn't he?
I don't know if every volume, Rob, but I would say the majority.
Yeah. At least, I think he may have missed one. But
right.
I know he's in almost every other one, every other issue we did.
The point that Frank's always happy about is the fact that 2 of the 4 Secret Agent X covers actually featured his story. The covers were representative of the stories he wrote. That was, I think, the 3rd and the 4th volume. So
yes.
I think he's secretly hoping we're going to do the same for volume 5. Well, that will depend, like we've got planned. Once you finish the interior illustrations, then we're going to get Ingrid Hardy to do the cover. And that hasn't been set in concrete yet, so still pretty much.
No, yeah, we haven't decided what scene or what really jumps out at us as a cover.
Yeah.
Unlike the pulps themselves, which the covers weren't always about what was going on inside the book. Mm-hmm. With this series, we usually do that. We usually take a scene from one of the stories themselves,
right,
to illustrate the cover.
Something really powerful and dramatic that pops up while reading and editing, or while you do the illustrations. Okay, so that's what's on the table. That's what we're working on. But even more important than what we're working on, we're packing our bags. Because this time next week, you and I are going to be on our way to Chicago to the annual Windy City Paper and Pulp Show.
Yeah, we're fueling up the airship, and we're headed for Chicago.
This, I believe, is our 10th year in attendance.
I think you're right. Something like that.
Wow. Because I think the show itself, and I'm probably wrong with this, and I'm sure Doug Ellis will jump down my throat when we show up. But I think this is either the 16th or 17th year of the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can...
Right.
I think it is the 17th.
I think it's right. That. It's I believe it's the 17th, and like I said, this will be the 10th year in a row that Airship 27 has tables and is a participant at the show. And aside from just being there, like the other vendors, over the years, you, myself, and the other members of the new pulp community have gotten really actively involved with the convention itself, thanks to Doug Ellis and John Gunnison, the people who put the show on, in inviting us to participate in a way above and beyond just being there as vendors. One of the first such being the first night of the official convention, which will be Friday night. There are several events that take place after dinner. The hall closes, the Hustlers Hall closes up. People are allowed to go back to their hotel rooms, to freshen up or whatever, go to dinner. Then it's back to the convention hotel. And the first, I believe they have a panel. Then after the panel, they have you and I host the annual Pulp Factory Awards. Now, I believe when we did our first recording way back 2 months ago, going on 3 months ago now, you and I explained the nominees. The ballot had just come out.
Yep.
And so the update with that is that voting has completed. It ended the 1st of this month. And you are in the process of making the 5 statues, because we're adding a new one now, Best Anthology Collection. And what will happen is that Friday night at the convention, you and I have the fun of hosting the presentation, of announcing the winners and presenting them with that beautiful trophy of theirs and whatever. So I would take it you're in the process of molding those trophies right now.
Right. I was in when I talked to our sculptor Phil, I used Facebook messaging, and I just got I had the last couple of days I've sent some messages to him asking him where he is, and he says he should have the statue part have it all finished up Friday. So, and I got the bases. I ordered those last week, and they came. I think it was Tuesday. So they're in the box downstairs, waiting for the statues. And we do this. We do this every year. It's like a last minute thing that I put these things together. It's like a day or two before the show. I get all the pieces, and what Phil gives me is pretty raw. It's just rosin that he's cast.
Mm-hmm.
I paint them up. Everyone that thinks they're metal, they're not metal. I make them look like metal. I spray paint them black, and then I dry brush them with a kind of a gold or bronze color, and they look like metal. When I hand one to a person, they expect it to weigh like 10 pounds, and it weighs 3. So all the weight is in the base itself because it's wood with an etching on the face of it.
Right.
And
when you're
while
done,
we're talking about this, I pulled up the website, and it's the 15th year of Windy City Pulp and Paper Convention.
Oh, okay.
15th. So
okay.
just to bring that up to date.
Good, excellent. Okay, and then look, if again, I would advise people to go to our Facebook page to check out, especially the Pulp Factory Facebook page, which has a background picture on the page itself of the award statues that were initially devised, and you created them off on a napkin, sitting at a restaurant at a Panera Bread in Lombard that year that we put all this together. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I'll let you pick up on it, is that, we don't get any money for doing this. We don't have a salary. We don't get a paycheck. And things like the Pulp Factory Awards, which, the main goal was always to bring public attention to the new pulp movement, to showcase all the really talented writers that you and I have come to know over the years, and now these young artists and cover painters and everything else who are working in this field. And the awards idea was always not even so much, like I said, not so much to pat anybody in the head as to make the public at large, readers at large, much more aware of the new pulp movement and establish it in the entire pulp, fandom family, that much more solid to keep pulp fandom alive. That's our primary goal with all of this, with Airship 27 and the Pulp Factory Awards.
Yeah,
but
that's what new pulp is all about. Yep.
But again, we basically are at the mercy of our friends and our colleagues, and God bless them. A lot of them donate every single year, out of the kindness and generosity of their souls, for us to foot the bill to make these statues, because they are not cheap. You've just explained the process and how it all comes together, and we've been doing that for 4 trophies in the last 5 years. Now it's 5. So, Rob, if anybody out there listening, all right, feels so moved, and please, I'm not the kind of guy who likes to walk around with a tin can out there or whatever. So the bottom line is, if you're into pulps and you enjoy new pulps and you've bought new pulp books, either from Airship 27 or White Rocket Books or Pro Se Press or whatever, and would like to contribute, would just like to make a donation, and please understand, $1, $2, even the smallest would be so heartfelt appreciated. Rob, how can people make a donation?
Okay, well, probably the easiest way is through PayPal, and they can send it to me, and my PayPal account is Rob M. Davis at mac.com. That's ROBMDAVIS at MAC.com. Now, if they don't like PayPal, or they don't want to use PayPal, they can also email me at that same email address, and I will send them my snail mail, and they can mail me a check. And the reason we ask for this is every year we get lots of donations. but almost always I end up making up the difference. It's some years it's a lot, some years it's not so much. So, and I would like to get more people involved in this, so that and get other people funding it, so it's not so, because I get nominated every year, so it looks like I'm trying to buy the thing. I'm not trying to buy the thing. I'm just trying to put together a nice little award here. So I'd like to put it a little more arm's length, at least at that way. So getting more people involved in this, it just helps the awards, and it helps push new pulp.
Right. I mean, one of the things that I was happy about this year, because it was the first time that we did this. In the past 5 years, the award was inclusive to just the members of the Yahoo Pulp Factory group.
Right.
And what we did this year, to again stimulate some new interest in the awards, was we kept the nominating process for the ballot within the group. But once the nomination ballot was created, we opened it up to the public to vote. And that did work to our benefit, Rob, in that we got well over, I don't know, I think the last time I talked to Andrew, we were close to 150 people actually voted.
Yeah, I was thinking it was 165, but that may be just a number that came out of my head.
Well, there you go.
So
all right, so the point being is we did achieve our goal in getting more people involved with the process. And you know what? To those people listening to us right now, all it would take, if you're looking at 150, 165 people, if each one of these people were nice and kind enough to give us $1 or $2, $2 or $3,
$2 or $3,
it would more than cover the expense of the 5 awards.
Yes, it would.
So that's our pitch. We're not going to belabor it. Up front, Rob gave you the information, and we'll check with Brant at the end of the show and make sure that information is in the liner notes.
In the show notes, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'm gonna say just one more thing about it, and I lost track of thought there. Okay, never mind.
No, that's okay. What I was saying. Right. So.
Oh, I know what it was. Okay, it just came back to me. That in this year, just to give people an idea, I put these together myself to try and save some money.
Mm-hmm.
So this year I thought, well, let me look and see if we can get a custom made from a real trophy company. And I looked at prices and I went, oh my goodness. So if you think that $2 or $3 a piece from 165 people sounds like too much, just if we'd gone to a custom place, and I actually had somebody from some company learned about our awards and actually approached me to do them for us. And I kept trying to push them off because I knew they weren't going to be in any kind of range of our budget.
Right.
And I finally got them to commit to how much it would be, and I almost fell over about how much it was.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's very expensive. I tried to keep the price on this down. Phil has been really very good about helping us with this, and I've tried to send a little money his way too to help him offset some of his costs and his talents.
Excellent. So
I just wanted to let people know that this is we're not buying an Oscar, a gold-plated Oscar here. This is just nice. I've tried to make a nice-looking award that's very customized.
Well, you have, and I think it's funny that a couple times in the past you and I have actually gone to the members of the Pulp Factory and suggested the possibilities of doing maybe much cheaper wooden plaques.
Yeah, a plaque. Or those are expensive, by the way.
Well, there you go. And the Hue and Cry's always been, everybody loves that pen and quill trophy. It's beautiful. And you have one. I have one. I'm immensely proud of it. It has a place of honor in my office.
Mine too.
Yeah. So again, we don't do this as an exuberant thing. Rob and Phil Dutcher, his sculptor, have really made a beautiful, beautiful trophy as economically as they could. So again, please, if you can donate, we're going to thank you up front here.
Every penny helps. Really.
Amen. Okay, now.
Okay, now on the next stuff.
Well, to finish this particular topic, I just wanted to add that aside from the new pulp the Pulp Factory Awards on Friday night. On Saturday, I can't speak for the other vendors or the other publishers who will be in attendance at the show, but Rob and I at Airship 27 are going to have some fun in that we've done this before. We're going to have two of our writers at our tables on Saturday signing copies of their books. Yes. The first one will be Gene Moyers, and Gene has done, I think right now, off the top of my head, I think he's done 4 short stories for us. So we will have, I believe, 2 of his anthology titles that he has stories in.
Well, Domino Lady for one.
What? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that was the latest.
I wanted to get that one out because it was, it had one of his, and plus, right. I think that's going to sell well for us at this show.
I think so too. I believe he's also done a Ravenwood story.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna go vague on the others. Purple Scar. He did a Purple Scar for us as well. All great stories, all great anthologies. So Gene is going to be there early afternoon. I believe his signing starts around noon. And then he'll be with us for an hour. Then there'll be a gap. And then later in the afternoon, a local Illinois writer who's one of my favorites over the last couple of years, Fred Adams Jr., is going to be joining us. And he's going to be signing his books. Last year, we put out 2 of his novels, 6 Gun Terrors and Hit Wolf. And
what a talented guy.
Yeah, and if you're hearing what I'm saying, you can't get any more pulpish than what Fred delivers, believe me, all right? And he's a retired college English professor. His work is phenomenal. I love having him work for us. So both Gene and Fred will be joining us on Saturday. And finally, I'm not going to get into the complete full details of it, but once again, the kind people of Windy City have given the new pulp community a 5-hour block of events which take place on the last day of the show on Sunday, which has now been tagged New Pulp Sunday. And that 5-hour block begins at 10 o'clock in the morning and goes till 3 in the afternoon. It will feature 3 one-hour panels, which I believe you are moderating one of those, Rob.
Yeah.
And 6.
Mine's from 1 to 1.
Right, and you are, and not you, but I'm doing a reading, which is one of 8 author readings, and all of that takes place on Sunday. So as you can see, there are a lot of things that happen at Windy City.
Yep. It's kind of our home show, really.
It's very much so.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's where we started out, and it's where we first, we sat at a table with, what was it? We had five different titles or something like that.
That was our premier baptism of fire. Oh.
And now we have 2 tables full of stuff. So it just shows you what's happened.
Oh, my Lord, yes. And it just gets crazier. A couple of years ago, we did the Airship 27 patch as a premium. This year, we're bringing coffee cups. So all you coffee-loving pulp readers, come to the table. These are really cool-looking cups. So there you go. Pulp City, it happens next weekend. Check your calendar. Check Google. We're going to be leaving all kinds of notices up on Facebook and everything else. If you're anywhere in the Lombard area of Chicago, it's a suburb of Chicago. If you're going to be
northwest side, yep.
If you're anywhere in Illinois nearby, come on down. If you've never been to a pulp convention, and for all of you guys out there who are comic book fans and whatever, and have only ever done comic book shows, take a day, take an afternoon, come and check out a pulp show. There's a lot of similarities, but then again, as some of the things we talked about, there's also differences. And I think it would definitely appeal to comic book fans.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yep. April 17th through 19th, 2015.
There you go. Hot dog. We look forward to this all the time, Rob.
Yes. I love going to this.
We've made so many friends in this community, we can't count them all. All right, so next part of the segment is one that I really want to get to and have some fun with, because we're gonna next read some of the letters that have been sent to us, and then after we're done with that, we're going to answer a couple of the questions that were sent to us since the last show. We've got 3 letters that I cataloged that came to us within a week after we recorded episode 2. I'm going to read the first one, and we can make a few comments. I'll let you read the second, and I'll take the last one. All right. First letter we got on the Comic Related boards themselves at Comic Related, and it's from an editor publisher of his own independent titles who tags himself as Midnight Fiction, and he writes, "You're coming in loud and clear, Captain. Thanks for another great show. I nearly fell out of my seat when Rob said sales of digital books outsold print. I'd always figured the old guard would much rather have a hard copy on their bookshelves than read one of those Kindle thingies. Wrong. Must be a combination of price and, as you said, lots of new readers discovering the joys of heroic adventure in prose. Keep them coming, Captain Ron." So yeah, I think, this gentleman is probably closer to our age, Rob.
Yeah.
And in that aspect, is a bibliophile, has been a reader all his life and enjoyed reading. But the truth of the matter is the reading world is today made up primarily of digital readers, the Nooks and the Kindles and whatever. And every one of our publishing colleagues tells us the same thing. The majority of sales happen digitally.
Yep.
So, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
As we said.
Yeah, I was a late convert. I didn't, I thought we should stick pretty much to that, and the early attempts to take what I had done to design our books and turn them into an ebook were just horrendous. It would have been so much work to make them into a Kindle book that it was just not worth the effort for me. Right. But then along came some plugins that I could put into the program I use, which is InDesign, which made it much easier. There's still a few tweaks that I have to do to it, but they're pretty minor anymore. I just went back and retweaked, I think, Sherlock Holmes #1. Andrew Salmon emailed me and said there's been a lot of complaints about the formatting on that. There were some formatting problems. And that was mostly because of that change from in InDesign from the print version to the Kindle version. But the latest version of that plugin is much better. So I just went in and kind of cleaned it up and pumped it back out there again, and it's much nicer now. So anybody out there who's got a Kindle version, you can go out and get the new version.
Okay, I tell you what, why don't you take the second letter?
Okay, yeah, we got to move on. A letter from Scott Coons, Coons. You and Mr. Fortier did such a great job on your last two podcasts. As a writer with low vision, I found that new pulp books are easier on my eyes than comic books. Due to this and the pulp industry's greater need for purchases and support, I've decided to change from a comic book writer to a pulp writer while supporting Airship 27 and other pulp businesses. Thank you for introducing me and others to this really fun industry. And I want to say thank you, Scott, for joining us.
Yeah, when I saw this letter myself, I was really touched by it, and I hope that things are fine with his vision, that it doesn't get any worse than that. Hey, none of us gets any younger, and my sight sometimes gets a little tricky on me as well. So I really appreciate Mr. Coons' positive attitude here, Rob. And just saying. Yeah, I'm just going to shift my interest. So, like you, welcome to the new pulp movement. We are so glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Please. All right, okay. And the last letter we got from last episode came to us from Eric Franklin. And he writes, I have had a great time listening to the Airship 27 podcast. Would love to hear you two talk about your experiences in writing and creating pulps and comic books. I always enjoy hearing of someone else's creative process, and I think your listeners would too. Well, I tell you, Eric, Rob and I could probably bend your ear for the next 6 hours with no problems at all.
Easily.
Yeah. So it's not that we're not going to do that. If you listen to our shows, we will do our best in our, informal conversations from episode to episode to, talk about those things, talk about some of the experiences that we've had, that we've enjoyed, the good and the bad, and share them with you, our listeners. One thing I would like to suggest, though, to you is if you would like us to focus on a particular theme about writing, creating comics, drawing, or whatever, please feel free to ask us a specific question, and that will be a lot easier for us in a future episode to address directly. Whereas, like I said, we just can't sit here like we're on the neighborhood porch and while away a few hours. Our show's an hour long. We know it. Everybody's time is valuable, and we appreciate that you people out there give us an hour of your time. So we want to make it worthwhile, and we want to cover as many different topics as we can.
Yep. We like talking about ourselves anyway. So otherwise we wouldn't have a blog. But we have to kind of stick on topic. And yeah, if you have some specific questions about the creative process in comics, ask us some of that, and then we can spend we'll set up a segment on one of our podcasts and talk specifically about that. And if you want, we can do it over several different ones. If you want to ask a different question every month, but we'd like to set aside just a segment rather than we could talk for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours easily about that.
All right. I mean, it's what creators do, Eric. And if you ever have the opportunity to meet us personally, to be at either Windy City or the Pulp Fest show in Columbus or any of the other shows that Rob and I attend, please never hesitate to come over to the table to say hi and say, hey, I'm one of your listeners.
That's where we go.
Right, and we would love nothing better than to have a nice conversation about what we do and the fun we have doing it. So, segueing from that, I do want to thank these 3 people who took the time to drop us a nice note and letter, and I'm hoping that more people will follow suit. So if you're listening to this show and there are things about it that you would like us to, if we mention a topic or a thread and you'd like to have, more information about that, please drop us a line. And again, if it's to tell us you like the show, we truly appreciate that. And if it's a critique, if there's something that we're not doing that you'd like to see us doing, spending too much time on a certain thing where we should be going to something, just write us a letter, please. Okay. We want to know you're out there, and we want to make this show your show as well as our own. And so with that, we're going to go into our final segment of the hour this time around. And we have 2 questions this time, buddy, and I'll let you take the first one.
Okay, well, this one's from our pal, Andrew Salmon from Canada. He says, what character from any of the vast world of pulp and pop culture would each of you love to work on, and why? So, which one what would I like to work on?
Oh, yeah.
I would like to work on the Shadow or the Spider. Those are, I haven't, those aren't, we can't work on those because someone else owns them, or we have not been invited by those who have the rights to work on them. But those are a couple that I would like to have some fun drawing. I've done a couple of Spider illustrations, but doing a comic or doing some illustrations for a book would be a lot of fun, I think.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because Andrew leaves it open, like he says, to both pulp and pulp culture.
Pop culture, but world of pulp and pop culture. So that would, could be anything. Yeah.
Well, like Golden Age comics, Rob. Are there any comic properties out there you'd like to get your hands on?
Oh, well.
Loaded question, huh?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them. Well, one I would love to do that you and I. This is how we met. You asked me to work on the Green Hornet book.
Yes.
Now comics, and right. I couldn't at the time, but I would love for us to take a stab at him now and see what we could do with him. I think that would be really interesting.
I have. Good. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. That was finished.
Oh no, months ago I did a podcast interview for a gentleman who was a humongous Green Hornet fan.
Yeah. And
so he was kind enough to have me on his show, and it was a marathon thing. I think it went like 2 hours or whatever. And basically, my total and complete involvement and immersion in that character. And the resulting, series at Now Comics. And towards the end of it, he said something that, quite honestly, I had never considered. And of course, the big thing with me writing the Green Hornet for Now Comics, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Rob, is that I made it a generational saga.
Yes.
And I incorporated all the Green Hornets, from the radio to the cliffhanger serials to the 60s TV show with Van Williams and Bruce Lee. And I tied them all together, which, trust me, was headache material like you can't believe, to make it work. But I managed to figure a way to go from generation to generation. And so after almost 3.5 years involved with the first edition and then the second edition of that series, and when it all ended, I had taken a lot of these characters and supporting characters from both the Reed family and the Cato family, and written all these adventures with them and put them through their paces and whatnot. So this Green Hornet fan says to me now, right? He said, Ron, if all of a sudden by some miracle of chance you were given the opportunity to come back to that particular saga, like 25 years later, and merely pick up on it from where you left off. In other words, to basically say 25 years has transpired in the life of those characters since I left them. And his next question to me was a riot, and he was, so who would be the Green Hornet? And and I sat there for a second, and all of a sudden, all these characters were like floating around in my head and their relationships and all that. At which point, he answered it for me. He turned around and went, well, it would be Danny, wouldn't it? And of course, I laughed because at that time, when the series ended, Danny was the 10-year-old son of Britt Reed Jr.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my God, yes, of course he would. He would definitely have to be today's Green Hornet. Yeah. And it just sparked something in me, Rob, okay? So that, listening to you talk about that, I guess right now, of everything out there in regards to pulp culture and getting comic books or whatever, right? My real dream project would be to be given an opportunity to do that, to go back to that family saga and pick it up 25 years later. And, where are those characters now? And, who got married, who had babies, who passed away, the story of life as told through the Reeds and the Catos in this day and age, all right? And, and to have you on board as my artist for a series like that, I think we could have a hoot with that.
We would have a blast.
Oh,
and it also brings me to another character that I would probably like to work on, because I've never done a Western, so it'd be kind of fun to do a Lone Ranger comic or book.
Oh,
so there's another one I'll throw out there. That would be kind of fun, I think.
Well, as much as I agree with you on that, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm sure you'll see it coming a mile away. You and I have had the nucleus of a Western series, sitting in our files for I don't know how long now, collecting dust. But it's basically our presentation of a miniseries, aka graphic novel, telling the real life story of the greatest lawman who ever lived, which is obviously, is Bass Reeves.
Right.
And you've gone as far as, how many pages did you do? 8 pages?
10 pages.
10 pages of the opening saga. I wrote the first script and actually started writing the second script. So all those things are sitting in the file cabinets. And I still hold out hope someday that you and I get to tell that story, because your art was amazing in it. And both of us, really, are passionate about the fact that that's one story that should be told. If our listeners are unfamiliar with it, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest real quick. But Bass Reeves was a runaway slave who, at the end of the Civil War, was living in the Southwest, the Oklahoma territories, which
Indian territories,
right, which wasn't even a state at the time.
Right, it was just a territory.
Right, and he had married another runaway slave. They had a big family. They had a ranch, and he was illiterate, mind you. He was a blacksmith, he had lived with Native American tribes during the Civil War and had been taught tracking, shooting, horse husbandry, all of that stuff. A brilliant, intelligent, self-made man, if you will. And what happened was Judge Parker opened up a federal court in, Fort Smith?
Fort Smith, Arkansas, wasn't it?
Right. And he needed traveling U.S. Marshals to police the Badlands, to take writs and warrants and go out and apprehend these criminals and bring them back. Well, what happened was his white deputies found that there were so many of these small villages and hamlets, either made up of runaway slaves or Native Americans. And they wouldn't, have anything. I mean, these poor marshals took their life in their hands going out.
They see a white guy coming over the hill. He's dead.
Exactly. So someplace in all this, Judge Parker very wisely figured out, I really need a black lawman to police, part of that territory. And he asked his chief marshal to recommend somebody who instantly knew of this rancher farmer with all this background and history, being Bass Reeves. Now, Bass at the time, I believe, had something like 7 children, Rob. And believe me, putting, food to mouth, it was a 24-hour day job for this poor guy. So the opportunity to be a deputy marshal came with extra money. And that was the allure for Reeves. But here was the thing that I always loved about this story. He was illiterate. So basically what would happen is when the marshal would give him warrants to go out into the Badlands and bring these people in, he would show him the signature on the warrant and then describe the character. In a 35-year career as a lawman, Reeves never gave the wrong person the wrong warrant. I mean, it's just insane. He was an expert tracker. He loved to wear disguises. He dressed himself up to look like a homeless...
real-life Lone Ranger.
Oh, all these things. And like I said, he was in something like 14 major shootouts, never wounded once, could hit, was almost ambidextrous, could fire from both hands. In a 35-year career, he actually apprehended over 3,000 felons. It's just the story.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It boggles your mind.
And no one knows who he is.
Right.
No one knows who he is.
Right, because
that's astounding.
Right, we get the whitewashed history, my friend, and the puns intended. Okay, I mean, we get told of the Wild West, and we get told of Wyatt Earp, and Bat Masterson. None of these guys could hold a candle to Bass Reeves. None of them.
I mean, just the 2 guys that you just mentioned were, to put it lightly, they were bastards. They were mean guys. They were nasty guys. Bass Reeves was a nice guy.
Well, right, and
he was really good at what he did.
And the reason he became a lawman and the reason he put his life on the line, and I say this because I've read several biographies of him, one of them written by one of his nephews who later grew up to become a federal judge, all right, was that Reeves, after the Civil War, after emancipation, saw the government opening up, the West opening up, and he wanted it to be a civilized part of the country. He wanted it to be a place where everybody was legally treated the same by the law. And that was his passion, to bring justice to everybody, regardless of their creed, religion, or race. He was a man of law. He was a real, honest-to-goodness lawman. I mean, even after he retired from being a U.S. Deputy Marshal, the folks, and I'm trying to remember where it was in Arkansas. I'm trying to think. I'm forgetting the town. What is it, Tuscaloosa or?
I don't know.
Anyways, they came to him at the age of 72 because, and we could talk. You see, Mr. Kuhn wants us to talk about things. We're talking. Here we go. The kicker. We're talking history, people, on a pulp show. But the truth of the matter is, once Oklahoma became a state, the carpetbaggers came, the people looking to make money. And with them, they brought prejudice and Jim Crow laws and all that ugliness. So that in his old age, Reeves basically gave up being a lawman and retired And what happens is, it was Tuskegee. That's where it was.
Yeah,
And
that's it. Yeah.
What happens is, once again, new towns are built, but now we have segregation again. We'll let, the runaway slaves come and build in our towns and villages, but they have to stay on their side of the track, kind of BS. Yep. All right. So again, the local lawmen have, that kind of grief, and because they self-created it, and they go to Reeves, who's now 72 years old, and ask him to be the sheriff of the black part of town in Tuskegee, and he takes the bloody job.
72 years old, man.
And so he's out there walking the streets in the middle of the night, this frail ex-lawman or whatever, until eventually he collapses. He had several things, age and whatever, and passes away. From the biographies I've read, one was written by a professor from South Carolina named Art Burton. When he passed away and the news of his death reached the state capitol and everything, it was the largest single attended funeral for any Oklahoma lawman ever recorded in their history. And not just Oklahoma. They had lawmen from Texas and Arkansas in the thousands attending his funeral. If you go to I believe, Tulsa, Oklahoma, there is a statue of Bass Reeves next to a Western museum or something to that effect. But anyway, so, hey, loyal airmen, we've just given you a real life history of, again, like Rob said, somebody you have probably never in your entire life have ever heard of. And
just astounding.
That to me is the biggest crime of all.
Right.
Okay. All right, hey, I'm going to get to Richard Gordon's question here, which will be our wrap-up for this episode. Richard, kind enough to write and ask. And now, if a question for your third podcast, how come a lot of classic pulp characters are considered period pieces when they were contemporary tales when originally written?
Yeah.
While there are exceptions, like the Lone Ranger and Zorro, for example, I cannot see any reason not to bring some pulp characters to the present. Your Secret Agent X, for example. Why can't he be in the present? With everything going on today, I think it would be a perfect setting for him. Your thoughts on this? So what do you say, Rob?
Yeah, that's a good example. Secret Agent X could work today. I think, though, that the character was truly created for the era in which he was written, his whole milieu. We could do a new agent and maybe have some of the same things going on, but it would actually be a different character, really. We'd have to create a new character for today's problems and for today's things that a secret agent would deal with. Right. So, I like to see them personally set in their own era. It's like, to be absolutely truthful, I think James Bond worked best in the 1960s during the Cold War.
Right.
I think they've done a good job of bringing him along into the modern world, but I think he worked best in the milieu in which he was created, which was the 50s and 60s and the Cold War. So it's that kind of thing. That's pretty much why we leave them in those eras. I mean, you could bring the Lone Ranger into the present. You could bring Zorro into the present too, but he would be a different character.
Right, exactly. The sensibilities of the time do very much create the motivation and the reason for being for a lot of these characters. People have tried to do modern Tarzan movies, which I think is a classic example, and those things fall apart rather quickly, only because the time that Burroughs wrote Tarzan, Africa was pretty much a land of mystery.
Yeah, unexplored. It was
right.
Exactly.
That's such a huge element. And Burroughs' concept of the savage man, as opposed to the encroaching, culture and civilization, was at its core what Tarzan was all about. So creating a Tarzan for 2015 simply doesn't work because we've explored that world and whatever. And it would be really hard to imagine that character somehow or other. Okay, it's been done, it's been tried. There've been TV shows. I don't know if you've ever seen any of these, Rob, where he works like on a jungle preserve or whatever. Okay,
and the Ron Ely one in the 1960s, I think, was still pretty good.
Yeah. Right. I think it was fun, and don't get me wrong, I liked it.
That was a great show. I think it still played too many of the me Tarzan, you Jane tropes with having the little boy Jai. Yep. And then Cheetah, the chimp. I think those were the still stuff from the movies. In the books, Tarzan doesn't have a chimpanzee as a companion. He has a monkey as a companion, right. A little spider-type monkey.
Yep. And of course, the books were pulps. And if people are only familiar with the characters through films or television, I would strongly urge them to go find Burroughs' books, and that would be huge difference. That would be quite the awakening. Now, looking at some of the other characters that we've talked about, again, I don't see the shadow translating well either. All right,
no.
I think there was a time, and again, to the 30s when he was created by Walter Gibson, communication was something, the spy craft of that time, if you will, Rob, all right, was dependent on agents and being at a certain place. And the Shadow was very much a precursor of a lot of the spy stories that came, as he was the puppeteer. A lot of his books were his agents, going here and there and doing his bidding. Whereas today, we live in a world of instantaneous communication, where all of us walking around with cell phones or smartphones or whatever, and you lose that sense of suspense, because whatever, pitfall you can put your agent in, he can grab his smartphone and call for help in 2 seconds. Yeah. All right. So again, it's the times that these characters were created were a part of who they were. I think something like Secret Agent X, Rob, I would definitely, and you and I have talked about him and how we could do it. I think he should be done in his time and setting. But if somebody came up to me and said, well, we want to do Secret Agent X in in 2015, then I would have to make him some kind of a really super secret spy who would be part of some elite anti-terrorist group.
Right. Yeah.
And that would work. All right. I mean, take it out of the political milieu of the Cold War, as you said, in the James Bond stuff, because, like it or not, it's an imperfect world, and there are always threats out there. All right. There are always threats to democracies and whatever, and the world's always going to need heroes. But the heroes change, and the heroes shift, and the heroes become other things as time goes on, which, you and I have seen. The heroes that you and I enjoyed, like the Lone Ranger and Superman and those kind of things we were growing up, were for their period and their time. But the world's become a lot more complicated. It's become a lot smaller. There's a lot of other things that take into account. What is a hero today? Brother, that's a topic for a whole other show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Easily.
All right. Okay, well, hey, again, I'm checking the clock here, and believe it or not, pal, another quick hour has just gone by.
So sure has. Damn.
Thanks to everybody here, the good folks at Comic Related, who are kind enough to give us this showcase to do what we do. Thanks to all our loyal, airmen out there who support us. Go check out Domino Lady, please. I think you're going to be really surprised when you see that cover. I wish Ted Hammond would do a print of it. I think he'd sell millions of them.
Oh, I think so too. And we will have copies at Windy City.
There you go. Yep. All right, you heard it here.
I bought some to bring along.
So please, if you're in the Illinois area next weekend, and I'm told by our good pal Sparky Brandt, who's recording this right now, this show, Rob, will be going live within 24 hours.
Oh, cool! Wow.
So I will get a link to Windy City, and it'll be in the show notes. Again, if you're anywhere in the area, please come on by, have some fun, stop over the Airship 27 tables, and say hi. We would so love to meet you. And with that, I'll let you say goodnight, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, this is Rob Davis, Chief Engineer of Airship 27, Signing off until next time.
And as Captain Ron, I'm saying down ship.
This has been a Gonzo Goose production.